Happy Halloween. Okay, so we did existential crisis, and now we need to do chaos, because these kind of go hand in hand. Take out your charts or your picture and look for this symbol. It's right here. It's like a royal blue. This myth is super, super important because it relates to everybody from the beginning. So, here's our subconscious formula. This myth has a lot of symbolism in it. Okay, so I'm going to go through that and then we'll look at where everybody has it. Right now, Uranus is in Taurus. Okay, so the signs that are mainly affected are Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius.
Haha, fuck him.
So it doesn't mean that other signs aren't affected, but these signs are the most affected, but specifically Taurus are the people that are feeling it, and Scorpio. Okay, so we'll go through the charts after and we'll kind of see where you have that. And so Uranus is the planet of chaos. And I'm going to go and explain the myth step by step. And it's going to take us back to the model of how the subconscious is formed and why this is so important. So how many of you, and maybe you don't know yourself that well, but it's something to consider, how many of you are more stable-seeking people, and how many of you are more chaos-seeking people? Okay, do you seek stability, or do you seek chaos?
Oh my god, I think
Problems, excitement, liberty, freedom. Oh my God, I want to be stimulated, I want to be excited. Or do you like more of a stability, more stable life?
Stable for sure, people.
Okay.
Stable
So we
from
say.
weekdays and crisis on the weekends.
Okay. So Monday through Friday, don't mess with work and school, but on the weekend, woo!
Bring all the trouble you want.
Okay. So you're going to find that people tend to fall in one or the other category. They really like stability or they seek chaos, okay? We come from chaos. And this is very, very important to understand that psychologically, we come from chaos. And I'm going to explain the myth in a minute. What this means is at the core of who we are, at the core, our foundation, we were actually birthed, we were created, human beings were created from chaos. So it is impossible to have stability all the time. It is impossible to avoid problems. It is impossible to avoid chaos. That is innate in our story and who we are and how we ended up here. And every single religion or philosophy starts with what is called a creation story. I don't have the book, it might be downstairs. Or a origin myth. And it always starts with chaos. So every single belief system starts from this innate, untouched potential, call it God, that wants to experience itself. It is dissatisfied. There is a dissatisfaction in the human condition, and you want change. This is inherent in human beings. So when we say we want stability, it's not true. Not because we don't genuinely want stability, it's just that innately, from where we come, we cannot just be satisfied with who we are and what we have and where we're headed. We need to constantly be changing and changing and changing. And change is chaos. Inevitably, when we change, chaos is involved. So, how many of you have chaos in your life? Okay, that means that chaos is being forged in your life. It's being created, and you'll see in the myth, to birth something new. So when you get that wrangling of I have to change, or chaos shows up, remember last time, we create the story externally, the change is created inside. When we create change or we create chaos in our lives, is because we are seeking a change. Something in our life is not satisfying us. We are dissatisfied. So take out your chart and look and see what house you have Uranus. The other thing I want you to look for is I want you to look at your wheel and find the cusp that looks like this, a squiggly line. Okay. Those two things are areas where chaos is going to happen in your life, where there's going to be dissatisfaction, where you're going to have a more, probably more change in that area of your life, or is going to cause you a total chaotic time in your life. So what house is your Uranus in?
Uranus and the cusp of the squiggly line is both on 10.
Okay, that's professional, and that has to do with your mom as well. Okay?
And the 12th, both of them.
Okay. The 12th has to do, that's intense. The 12th has to do with like karma and past lives and like undoing. But that is a chaos that is very, very, very internal. And it has to do with wanting to free yourself and find liberty, but not being able to. And so you're going to do a lot of work to free and liberate yourself from whatever handcuffs you're sort of, whatever
Like living
prison.
in karma and trying to like escape it. That's
You
what
can't,
I feel.
you can't technically, if you believe in karma, escape that, because if we create everything and what we get is what we deserve. But the 12th house is where everything is hidden. And so if that's your planet of liberty and freedom, you're striving to be free and independent, but you can't because it's stuck, think of the bottom of the ocean. It's like having a car down there that's going to take you someplace and it's going because it's on the bottom of the ocean. You're not going anywhere. There's no car that goes up and gets you out of the ocean. And it's also you who creates your own chaos. But you don't think it's you because it's so hidden in you that you think it's other people. But you're the one creating your own chaos. We are all creating our own chaos. It's always about us. But in the 12th, it's just specific a little bit more.
I have Uranus in 6. I don't like that time is good in life.
It's there.
Oh,
Okay, so it's in the 6th. Actually, it's in the 6th, but your squiggly is actually going to be the 7th. So your Uranus is in the 6th. That's going to be your health house. That's going to be your day-to-day life, your work, and I'll explain a little bit more. And this is Aquarius. Your Aquarius is in your marriage and with friends. So you might have a very open marriage, liberal views about friends, non-conventional. The Uranus in the 6th could be that your day-to-day life is really non-traditional. So Uranus has a lot to do with being non-traditional, okay?
I have Uranus in house 1 and squiggle line on, it's kind of like on 1 and 2, but it's more of 2.
Okay, so Uranus in the first is somebody that will constantly change physically. Okay, so there'll be a constant chaos in the physical form and in the personality, but will change physically. And then if the Aquarius, the squiggly's Aquarius, is on the second, it has to do with your money.
No kidding.
Yes.
No kidding.
I had to walk into Aquarius. Is it on the second?
Yeah, because we're doing Uranus, and Uranus rules Aquarius. So we're talking about chaos.
Oh, yeah.
So I need to take you back to the beginning, okay? I don't know what your beliefs are. I don't know what your religion is. This is not to offend anybody. This is simply myth. This is just a story. Every religion is based on a story. In Greek mythology, this is the story. But there is a theme. And this theme is super, super important to understand yourself. Okay, remember, this is about self-discovery. Every single religion takes something intact, call it God, spirit, the universe. And what do I mean by intact?
Something whole.
Whole. That's exactly right. There is no crack in it. Wholeness, right here. Every single religion, every single philosophy comes from something that is whole. There is no masculine, there's no feminine, there's no people, there's no identity, there's no physical, it is intact. Think of something intact in your mind. Give yourself a physical representation of something that's intact.
My chaos.
The chaos will come from that. Think of probably the calmest part of your life. The most boring, if you will, part of your life. Something in your life that's calm.
No social life.
Okay?
Or sex.
Now, okay, so no social life or sex. It's calm, it's boring, it's stable. What happens is, energetically, this wholeness, this energy, this entity, you can call it whatever you want, was dissatisfied. Why do you think God, spirit, wholeness, universe would be dissatisfied in its wholeness, in its boredom, in its stability?
Because exactly that.
What?
It's too calm. It's too stable.
It's too stable. What happens when you're too stable?
You want to shake it up a little bit.
You want to lose it, you want to shake it up. That is the nature of the human being because we come from this. This is a boring. Trust me that my life has been disaster. It has fallen apart. I told you all about my existential crisis and my chaos. I am craving stability. Therefore, my life right now is so boring, it is ridiculous. That cannot be sustained forever. Because the nature of the human being, where we come from, is chaos. And this is important to understand in the psyche of the individual. This does not mean that you have to bring a client to religion. This does not mean that you have to bring a client to the origin story of their religion or their myth or the philosophy. This is for you to understand why human beings create chaos and problems in their life. If we are of the belief that inside is where everything is happening, and we need to create the story on the outside with the people and the costumes and the players, we are the ones creating the chaos. And on the outside, I'm just manifesting what I need it to look like so I don't sound crazy to my therapist, and I can give her a story with characters and costumes and peoples and places. But the chaos is internal because this is what we come from. So every single philosophy starts with this wholeness, boring, stable energy. It is intact. And it's just whole and living its life and perfect. And all of a sudden, it's like, damn, this is boring. I need something. I need another person to talk to. I need to get laid, whatever. Something's got to give. And so this whole intact, perfect energy must birth, important word, must birth, create another entity, a part two, to interact. So this splits in two. And it says, I'm alone. Let me create something. Create, super important word. Let me create something so that I can experience something new. The only way that you can experience some change is if something new is created or birthed. The only way. Creative energy is absolutely necessary in order for something to be birthed, in order for something new, chaos, to happen. Does anyone remember of the chakras, which is the creation or the birthing chakra? The second chakra. And lo and behold is where our sexual organs are. Has nothing to do with sex and babies, people. Freud got a lot of crap because he talked a lot about sex. His whole theory, psychoanalysis, is all about sexual energy and penis envy, and the girl wants the penis and wants to eat the mother or marry the mother and kill the father. He was a little weird. But if you boil down the story and take away all that stuff, basically what that man was saying was this. The chaos and the problems come from creative sexual birthing energy. So the second chakra is also the chakra of desire. And every religion says, when you have desires, you're a sinner. Shame, shame, shame. You'd be fucking dead if you didn't have desires. So I'm having this conversation with my son the other day, the ego's evil and the desires and all this stuff. And I'm like, whoa, you need ego. You need creative energy. You need sexual energy. In astrology, it's where you have Mars. This is the sexual energy, the creative energy, the masculine energy, the go-getter energy. So it's what makes you go get a job, have ambition, fight for something. It's the Mars planet of war. It has nothing to do with war. It has to do with creating something new. So we all come from this entity that is like perfect, intact. That is our God nature. Every single one of us wants to be perfect. This belief that we are good, this belief that we're perfect, this belief that there is a God inside of us, comes from this. Raise your hand if you are a good person.
I believe so.
Okay, everybody raise their hand. Raise your hand if you are a bad person. Everybody should raise their hand because we are both. Because this quote unquote good, which is what we equate good to, perfect, good, making good decisions, stable, doing things for people, all of that we've decided was shattered because God, him or herself, spirit, universe, whatever you want to call it, said, you know what? I'm horny, aka sex, has nothing to do with it. I want to create something. Okay? What did God create in the Bible?
Man and woman.
And what else?
Earth.
And earth and the animals and the trees. And he created the earth in 6 days, and on the seventh he rested. Every single religion and philosophy starts with some version of creation. It is impossible to get here as a human being without something being created. Well, where the hell did it come from? It came from this intact thing that said, boom, if you believe in the Big Bang, and now the Big Bang, and it created everything. If you believe in God and Christianity, then God said, oh, let me experience people and trees. I don't give a shit where you get it from. It does not matter. This has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with the human condition, with the psyche. If we come from wholeness and good and perfection, there is a longing in the human being to get back home. A longing, a need. We want to be good. We want to get back to that. That's why religion rattles so many people. Religious wars and all this nonsense has nothing to do with religion. It's a human need. I need to get back home to this intact energy that created me. The problem is that in creation there is chaos. Anyone ever have a baby or watch a baby being born? Woo! Messy, dirty, bloody. The process of creation is messy and dirty. So how do you think that you or your client is going to create something new in their life without a fucking storm, without bloodbaths, without arguments, without chaos, without crisis? Impossible. And all we have to do is go back to the beginning, what I call the origin story. And you're going to take your client to their origin story. That's why in my model, it's about the origin story. How were they conceived? Wholeness, the egg and the sperm. And then how did they come out of the womb? There is a story from the moment that they're conceived, the origin story, pregnancy, which we'll talk about as another home, and then the birth. Because for that person, you and you and you and me, to be birthed, to change from in the womb to out in the world, there had to be chaos. So just by virtue of getting born, just by virtue of getting here and being a human being, you needed chaos and crisis. So do you think that in any stage of your life that you're going to change and hopefully grow for the better, as is believed that change is, you're not going to have crisis? That you're not going to go through a bloodbath? That you're not going to go through mess? Really? And that's when your clients come. Because they are dissatisfied with something, just like God said, oh, I'm so lonely up here. Let me create the trees and the birds and the people. That's what's going on internally in the psyche. I'm dissatisfied with something. Your chart tells you where you've got Uranus, where you're going to be dissatisfied. So that area of your life is going to blow the fuck up. Because you're going to create crisis and change and crisis and change and be dissatisfied over and over and over again. That's why most people, and I don't say all, although it's all, will have the same theme in their life show up again and again and again. Hence the movie Groundhog Day. Anyone see that? One of the best movies, because he lived the same day over and over and over again. And what we do is in our life, every 7 years usually, we live the same story over and over and over again, because there's one theme. That's your crisis, that's your dissatisfaction, that's the area where you're going to have confusion, where you're going to want independence, freedom, call it what you want. I'm going to explain why those terms in a minute when I talk about the myth. But we must understand that when someone is stable, when there is wholeness, when there are things that are intact, if you take the client back to when things were perfect and stable and great, it can't last. Something's going to rattle them. Something's going to shake them up. Something is going to come to fuck it up. So some people have this belief that, if things are too good, it's not good, because, oh my God, it has to end. Well, it's the truth. It's the absolute truth. It can't be that good for that long. Because the story doesn't go that way. The origin story doesn't work that way. We're calm, we're settled, we're happy, we're dissatisfied, we create chaos, we birth something new that indeed creates chaos and change, then we get stable again. That's why everything is temporary. The good, the bad, the happy, the pain. That should be a peace of mind for us. But it's not, because when you're going through the shit, you think it's going to last forever. But everything is temporary, because we're constantly just creating stability, crashing. Creating stability, crashing. Creating stability, crashing. And the area of your life that you will tend to do this with is where you've got Uranus and where you've got Aquarius. That just tends to be the areas that are most affected. There's other things too, but for today's purpose, we're going to focus on that. Okay? So we must understand psychologically that if your client is in like just total turmoil and their life has blown up, that they were dissatisfied with something the way it was, whether they acknowledge it or not. It's in the nature of the human being to come from this stability and say, need to create something, need to birth something, whether it's a business, whether it's a child, whether it's money, whether it's going back to school, whether it's buying a house, whether it's painting their house, something. Now, not everybody has to blow up their whole life because they need a change. That is not accurate. Some people will create the dissatisfaction and the change in small ways. That's an individual person. For some people, breaking a nail is a fucking and for other people, losing their children, and for some reason they can keep going and going and going, and I'm like, how the hell are you living? So that's the individual rigor of the person and the psyche of the person and all of the stuff that we've learned in psychology about motivation and resilience and all of that. But that there's change as a result of a dissatisfaction that came from stability, that's the model. That's the process. That's the order. So if you take them back, you'll always find that prior to the chaos, there was a dissatisfaction and there was a stability. And they're creating, at least in my model, we believe you created, you've created the chaos or the change or the problem because you want to change and birth something new from that dissatisfaction. That's why I say we're not crazy. People aren't crazy. There is a method to our madness psychologically. And if we go back to the story, to the archetypes, to the myths, we can see it plain as day. That's why you don't need to know astrology. Astrology just helps because it shows what the person, their process. But if you listen as a counselor, you're going to hear it just the same. So, from this wholeness,